Yo, greetings. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. What's up, everybody? I'm going live. Trying to get used to this. I'm doing a test through the StreamYard software, by the way. So we'll see how this is going so far. Um, this video is going to be about why I left the Democratic Party. I'm doing a test. Not sure this is my first time using StreamYard software. If this is going to upload to my YouTube channel, I'm not sure in particular. I'm trying to run a test, by the way. Um, Interesting. Like, see, testing out. See here. Okay, running a test. Okay, this video might get deleted. Running a test so far. I see somebody jumped in the chat. Okay. Now I see. I'm still learning this software. Just thought I'd try it out. I guess this is the free version so far. They don't allow you. I was trying to do the avatar thing because I didn't intend for there to be a lot of lighting. This is gonna be like a podcast, but just so you guys know, this will be a precursor to a video I planned on doing. Planned on uploading this to my main channel at Dorsey's Resource. I do have a second backup channel, by the way, which is linked to this channel. As usual, before we get started, I like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation might be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. Please understand these are my opinions on the topic. All rights are reserved. Now let's get into it, into the topic here. Just to give you guys a heads up, I'm using the StreamYard software. This is something I'm not used to. I was running a test, by the way. I guess this is the free version, so I was having trouble trying to upload the avatar. I had a picture because I didn't intend for there necessarily to be a lot of lighting or whatever. I was going to come before you guys earlier, but I want to let you all know that I'm still here because I did discuss previously that the next video that I want to talk about was involving politics, and this is also related to maybe social justice issues with a lot of the different things going on. But I will let you all know I don't have a lot of my or any of my notes here with me, so I'm gonna have to freestyle this off the top of the head, pretty much. I'm gonna have to go with the flow. I Big shout out to you all my subscribers, everyone out there who stays subscribed to me. New subscribers, appreciate you all for joining. Don't forget, if you haven't, to hit the notification bell in the bottom right hand corner of the video. YouTube should notify you, and I say keyword should, by the way, with all the censorship, of course, going on. I was going to discuss in this video is going to deal pertain with politics. This is going to be like a podcast, but however, I wasn't able to upload my avatar picture, which is fine. I'm showing my real face, but I don't have, I have some lighting in here, but I'm intentionally, um, want to have like the kind of the podcast feel, so I could kind of get some of my thoughts out. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm not on my desktop, but I had a lot of notes compiled, and I was going to basically discuss in the topic of this video why I left the Democratic Party, why I left the left, and I'm going to explain too why I swing more to the right. Because someone had brought up in a couple of previous video I had done, they had asked me about the Breonna Taylor situation. I hear there's always like a new unjust or bad situation that's on the news lately. I've been hearing about this guy named Jonathan Price down in Texas. That appears to be a really sad, unfortunate incident. What happened? Just a little bit of details that I know. I'm not an expert in and speaking about these things. But I'm gonna mention overall, I discussed in the previous video that I done. I touched on this somewhat. Why I swing more to the right versus the left in terms of my political leanings. I do have a lot. I mentioned a lot of my family members. I would even say close family appears to be very liberal, democratic, progressive. I didn't understand what liberalism was some years ago, but now I have a better understanding of the ideology, and I just plan on, expressing my thoughts. And like I said, to reiterate, I don't have my notes in front of me, so this is a bit of kind of a freestyle. But one of the reasons I prefer the Republican, the Conservative Party, is because I feel like their value system, it aligns more so with my beliefs. I was brought up in the church, just to let you guys know, give you all a little background. Some people who do know me personally already know this. I was raised in a Christian church, more specifically the Pentecostal Church of God in Christ denomination. Now I will say I no longer attend church. I don't have like a particular church home. I haven't gone consistently in the number of years, by the way, but I maintain my in terms of my spirituality. I I woke up many years ago, the same year that I woke up to the redemption education. I don't refer to that term, that label they try to come up with, associate where they say this sovereign citizen type stuff, that BS terminology or whatever. And there's a lot of agendas being pushed out here, by the way, to control the narrative. When you understand who controls the media, by the way, let's keep it real. At the end of the day, what are these major corporations? There are people behind the scenes that own and control them. There's like sub level corporations, divisions that are controlled by corporations higher up. And let's keep it real. They have an agenda, by the way. Oh, on a side note, I see a few of you all, looks like in the chat section, is showing me I'm getting used, still new to the StreamYard software, saying, see CJ in the chat, appreciate you. Thank you for joining. LA to Michigan says peace. Sura Carter says, wave symbol. Appreciate you guys. Big shout out to you on a side note, by the way. See, we don't have a lot of people in here. Not sure how many we're going to get. I'm thinking maybe I should have just made this into a regular video. But like I said, I had intended for this to be like a podcast. However, I didn't have my notes with me, but I'm going to try to freestyle off the top of the head. Well, I'll start off with this conversation I had with this subscriber recently. I won't say um, her name or the account that she's up under, but we talk every now and then. By the way, and she asked me about did I support reparations, and I want to say, in case you guys are unaware, I have over 6,000 subscribers. It shows where YouTube allows you, where if you want to make it visible, if in case you all may be unaware, that allows you to display that. And I have like just over 60, I think around just over 6,500 or something like that, to be more specific. But now it just estimates, gives you like an estimated number. And I've gotten a number of inquiries from people, different emails from different things. I don't really have just kind of a one-sided topic that I talk about overall for this channel. Several things I've talked about, of course, dinar, foreign currency. So this topic is generally going to kind of be outside the norm. So I wanted to let you all know I have like a mixture of a lot of different subscribers, by the way, from different walks of life that I met. Personally, I have a subscriber that is a Trump supporter that I spoke to, and I didn't have no problem expressing my own belief. And this is why I'm doing this video, since a lot of this stuff is being brought up nowadays. It's politicized in the age of social media. People want to know, sometimes what are your political leanings, or they may ask, "Hey Dorsey, where do you stand on this topic or this particular area?" And I felt maybe I should go into the history, a little bit of my background. Generally, the reason why, in case some of you are unaware, politicians do that, of course, is to present, when people, the public wants to know, when people are running for public office, for example, and they've never heard of this person before. They want to know, is this somebody they can trust, or they want to know what is their background. It helps appeal sometimes to the message that they're presenting. And from a public relations perspective, I took marketing, management in college. I majored in, and I had to take small business management, and I had to take marketing. So I understand a little bit. By no means will I say I'm an expert in this regard. I'm still learning and how these things apply to social media and branding. But to keep it real, at the end of the day, um, I've studied information on secret societies. I don't use the word conspiracy theory. That's like another topic that I've touched on. But nowadays, I see some things that are very concerning, and I want to address why I don't subscribe to the Democratic Party, why I left the left many years ago. In case you all are not aware, I'm not a registered voter. I have not been since 2004. I don't have any plans on participating in this upcoming election, but I still will give my way in, which I feel I have a right to do as a American. I would say it's a difference contractually between when you call yourself a U.S. corporate citizen under the 14th Amendment. There's legally, these are contracts, and I'm not trying to sound like all like out of sight, out of mind for you guys, but I think some of you already know what I'm referring to. By the way, so certain contracts I don't enter into. By the way, I don't volunteer to participate, and there's a lot of contracts people may be unaware are voluntary. A lot of people don't understand you're induced. But I want to try to stay on topic here. One of the reasons I subscribe more so to the right, the conservative party, is because I feel like they uphold, I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. At the end of the day, I think the Democratic Party is no longer the same like it used to be. It's been weaponized, and I know there's some out there. Some people will say, "Well, hey, Dorsey, both parties are controlled by two heads of the same snake." By the way, and I do get that. For example, some people say, Trump is part of the establishment, which I've heard that before. I do disagree with that statement, for the reason being that I say, why would the media be so ganged up against him if he was establishment? Because somebody that's establishment, they're going to support, they're going to back no matter what, even if they're on the opposite side of the spectrum. Like I've seen with how is it, previous President Bush seems like he now gets along with Obama. He was a Republican, Obama was a Democrat, but they all hate Trump. See, just obvious things like that, it doesn't make sense. Trump declassified the Kennedy files, for example. He's done things that seem like to go against the club. If you're a club member, or you're part of the secret society, or you're a Mason, you're not going to jeopardize these things. Uh, you're not going to jeopardize your fellow secret society brothers, or your fellow craft sisters, or whatever you decide to call it. So that's why I think I've defeated that. I've debunked that argument that Trump is establishment. By the way, it's just still my opinion at the end of the day, but I think that will resonate. You guys understand where I'm coming from. But the Democratic Party appears to engage in uh, very dirty tactics. And I know that some may say the same thing about the Republican Party, but lately I think it's been weaponized with the way they're labeling all of law enforcement. They have a plan where they want to defund the police. I feel like the Democratic Party, in my opinion, wants to get rid of the family structure. When I look at the organizations they support, now there is flaws on both sides. I've never said that white supremacy or whatever doesn't exist, but they notice they always push that talking point when they can't control the narrative. By the way, because of what happened in Michigan or whatever. I don't know if I'll really touch on that. I have to have my notes prepared to go address or delve into that. But that appears to be, suspect as well. I noticed right after the Michigan Supreme Court had ruled that Gretchen Whitmer's executive orders were very aggressive. I don't remember the exact verbiage or terminology, but it was basically null and void. And then it was this facade that she had just renewed the orders for those that live in the state, because I'm in this state of Michigan, by the way, in case you guys don't know. And just my take, it seems like there appears to be some type of retaliation, by the way, because it's actually about the militia is actually in the Constitution. By the way, it talks about that, and I read the article on a local Channel 4's website when a relative had texted me, sent the story to me. By the way, um, I didn't really think took too much of it, and I was on my computer, so I didn't respond to the text right away. So I want to read the article, see what it's about, and see. I'm not one of these people that either to just talk off the top of the head. I do my research. I just the way I speak on topics, I need to have my notes with me, which I don't. So I'm kind of going off the top of the head, but just speaking of, well, this is tied in why I left the Democratic Party, why I don't subscribe to, is what the topic of this video is about, by the way. Uh, and part of the reason is I don't trust them, by the way. I've seen them trying to have do this camera a certain way, trying to have this where you guys, because I've got it up, trying to see where I can still pull this screen up. Okay, here. All right. Okay. Well, still getting used to this StreamYard because I meant for this to be a podcast, so I can't because this is the free version. So I don't know if on the free version if you can upload your like your avatar or whatever. I had an actual my one of my profile pictures on the side note, by the way. So I'm just trying to adjust my phone, which I'm on, by the way, and discussing this topic. But I just see a lot of I've seen from years past a lot of corruption, by the way. I had a very action packed video, so I know I'm in this video, I'm kind of all over the place, guys, so just bear with me here. Give me some feedback too, but let me know. This is I intended for it to be Q&A session. I know I put walk away in the title of the video. I did do a previous video a while ago on a side note, in case you guys are wondering. I did a walk away video a long time ago. Even though, despite me not being a registered voter, I still feel at the end of the day, Trump was the better candidate. Even in this comparison back then versus Hillary, and even now compared to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I look at this example that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been politicians. I heard Biden for like over 40 years, for quite a while. They've been lifetime politicians. Where Trump, before we all know, before he ran for office, he was beloved by the media. A lot of people, rappers, shouted out his name in songs. I could name several of them. By the way, from Ludacris to Young Jeezy to Jay Z to others out there, he was the epitome of the American dream. He was even involved in different things, philanthropy. He receiving an award many years ago from Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Push for helping a lot of minorities, black people. He's done a lot of charity work. You won't hear about a lot of these stories, of course, from the mainstream media. They want to paint him as a racist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, all of these different, talking points that you guys have heard time and time again. Now, I myself, despite me not personally being a registered voter, which I canceled in 2004, I want to let you all know I still uphold the process of voting. However, I'm in a different category. And the option that I'm up under, they have hidden strategically. This system that we operate under in this corporate America, or once again, if you call yourself a U.S. citizen, that is a contract legally. I have documentation that can support, can substantiate the points that I'm making in this video to address my grievances I have. But I feel like overall, the Democratic Party, their belief system, their values don't align with my values. I'm more pro-life, by the way. Democrats support, of course, abortion. By the way, now they've changed it where they made it where babies can be aborted even up to nine months in the womb or whatever, and even just after. I don't know if that's from if it varies based on the state, all the details. But that's one of the things I feel like they're they don't support the family structure. I know Black Lives Matter, I heard this was reported on recently, took down from their website their ideological belief system. There was a few people that I saw that reported on this, by the way, from independent media that I follow, as well as some I wouldn't consider just independent media. They have a large following. They're like on the equivalent of mainstream media, by the way, where they have significant large followings, by the way, because the difference, the mainstream media, of course, they like to control the narrative, by the way. That's why they have created this thing with called fact check, this index thing where they want to say that if there's a talking point or something they don't agree with, they want to call. They also use hate speech. They label. They like to create stereotypes and put people in labels to. And this is from a strategic, from a marketing perspective, from public relations. This is an attempt to vilify people, to make someone look as though just because they don't support a particular ideology or belief system, to make them like an outcast. So these are things that happen if you study history in countries that are ran by communists, by the way, in case you are not aware, in communist ran countries, by the way, North Korea being one of them, where if you speak against the government, you do some of the slightest things, they're whisking you, and they even will take family members to camps. They have, by the way, and you guys can look up. There's still information, even in our country, on YouTube about that. I mean, they don't shy away. They don't hide that infographics. That educational channel that does puts things like answers questions, and puts it like in a cartoon form, in a comical sort of way. Answers a lot of different questions that people have, like an encyclopedia, by the way. They're like tell me why questions, or people have these particular questions. Very educational, by the way. Check out infographics. They have some videos on North Korea and what they do. And that's just one particular country. We're not talking about China and others. And I see that can happen, can come to America. And I believe it's actually already here. These things that are coming from mainly the Democratic Party are coming from the left, by the way. For example, I don't see, I was telling a friend of mine, I don't see the conservatives or the Republicans, whatever you call them, whatever label you use, by the way, I don't see them censoring freedom of speech, by the way. I don't see them kicking people off of social media, for example. I see that that's coming from the left, which appears to be democratic progressive control. These big tech giants, such as Apple, Facebook, Twitter, the companies that are controlled. Like, for example, we'll go with Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. And I understand it seems like there's been a lot of pressure put on them, so I don't want to make it appear as though I'm attacking that individual in particular. But this is in terms of their politics, their policies, and politics. Keep in mind, this is separate from an individual person's personality, a person's politics. So I understand this at the end of the day, that someone like myself, I can separate someone's personality from their politics. Now I know some people can be more judgmental. If a person doesn't support a particular political belief, then they'll shun that person, ostracize that person. And I see a lot of that comes from people who are on the liberal Democratic Party, who are progressives. They have a tendency, not all, but a significant portion, have done that, where they'll remove friends or family members or relatives from Facebook friends list, or they'll act like they don't know you. You won't get invited to family get-togethers. They're very biased, or they don't want to have, when politics is brought up, they don't want to have an honest political discussion, by the way. So in terms of censorship, by the way, like the video that these doctors came out with, where they were had a press conference about pertaining to COVID. I never saw nothing like this happen before in more recent history. Because generally, my personal Facebook account, I never really had no problems until very recently. I just happened to post a video what was that African doctor? It was the short version where they held a press conference and they were explaining, I guess, about hydroxychloroquine and the effects of it pertaining to COVID and some other things. And Facebook removed the video immediately. Like I even had a relative that texted me. I won't say what specific relative, but she told me she had saw the post and saw how they had abruptly taken it away. And I was stunning, for the relative to even reveal that. I wouldn't have never even known had the relative not even text me because the way technology works. I just wouldn't have simply known. I only saw the message when I logged back into Facebook and said that we removed the video. And then the reason they gave saying it could be hurtful. And I'm like, hurtful? I'm like, how can this video be hurtful when you have people who went through a lot of hard work, education to go in that particular type of profession, which I have a lot of respect for. Our scientists, medical professionals out there, different professionals, firefighters, policemen, um, nurses, doctors. These are professions that are very well respected. That I commend. People put their lives on the line. And these people were having a press conference to mention, they had their credentials and everything, which can be backed up. They were in their white coats. And they were mentioning information that the mainstream media is not allowing the general public to be able to take part in, to know that this is real because they want to control the narrative. So I saw not only Facebook removed this video, YouTube has been removing a lot of videos, and Twitter. And I think there's some other ones out there because they also bought some of these companies. Like Facebook owns Instagram, and I think Twitter owns Periscope or is connected to Periscope. By the way, so they're forming big monopolies, and that's why I feel these big tech companies they need to be broken up as well. These big tech giants they have too much monopoly, and that's why antitrust laws were put in place. By the way, this is some things I learned when I was in college. Well, I actually kind of knew about a little bit before, but I took business. Of course, I majored in management, and this was actually discussed in my college classes. Some of them talked about one of my business teachers when I went to DeVry down in Ohio before I transferred to Detroit College of Business many years ago. My business teacher at DeVry talked about monopolies and said they're really acquisitions. He said what they call mergers are really takeovers, by the way, where there's one major company, like if you heard big bank takes little bank. He said it's really not a merger, it's really an acquisition. They just put it, make it appear into the general public from a public relations aspect. For example, when Daimler merged with Chrysler, that was really a takeover. Daimler is a German company that I guess bought the original American company. I don't know if it was like the majority of shares, and then they eventually decided to change the name to Fiat. And then one of their CEOs or top heads was at a Bilderberg meeting some years ago. And if you don't know Bilderberg, it's a high level secret society, the Davos group based out of Davos, Switzerland. It's like the daylight version of the Bilderberg. And then they've had a lot of their private meetings, which are once every year, generally the beginning of June, every year, where they invite CEOs from major corporations from around the world. They invite politicians from numerous countries to discuss world policy and push their political agendas for the globalists, the ruling class elite, the criminal syndicate, different things such as climate change, controlling, of course, the tech companies, things of that sort. Just to give you guys a little idea, even mayors, local governments, so they can control these people better. They have a infrastructure, a structure to all of this, by the way they do things. And people really have to connect the dots, the pieces together when understanding these types of things. And I don't think enough of this proper information gets out to people who are on the side of the Democrats, who are on the left, because they're based at the very top. The mainstream media that pushes a lot of these talking points doesn't allow for reports for this type of information, except for the alternative media. Independent media will report on places like the Bilderberg Group, the Davos Group, or Trilateral Commission, or Council on Foreign Relations, or how these members of the ruling class elite, how they set world policies. and they'll meet with public officials, local government officials from various parts of the world, not just here in the United States, from all the way down from local mayors to major CEOs of corporations to inventors to tech companies, and they'll set and push for policies because they want to, of course, this is about control at the end of the day from many different levels of control. Just to give you guys kind of an understanding. But the topic of this video, in case you're joining me, by the way, I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. I'm testing out, was testing out this StreamYard software. This is like a podcast. This is a precursor to a video that I wanted to upload on my main channel. By the way, I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm freestyling off the top of the head. So I'm going to try to go off of what I remember. And I was kind of all over the place earlier on. If you guys watched the beginning of this video, so please forgive me. Please understand I don't have my notes with me, and the topic I'm going over why I left the Democratic Party. I'm not a registered voter. In case you're wondering what my political views are, my political leanings, I have not been a registered voter since 2004 when I canceled it at the Department of Elections in Detroit. By the way, proudly, and I don't plan on going back. I don't plan on. In case you're wondering why I'm explaining in this video why I do swing more to the right. I'm explaining why I will never come back to the Democratic Party. Now, this doesn't mean that certain things that happen. I want you guys to know. I don't want to sound like I'm this cold-hearted person. Like I still pay attention to what's going on, and I have relatives that send me like political messages and things like that. I receive from former classmates of people from my Facebook inbox and stuff about different police shootings and things that happen in the mail. Happen in the news. Also, too, I was explaining to you all, I have a very diverse group of subscribers, by the way. Was explaining this earlier, but I don't shy away from when I met some of you all privately that I've discussed with different things when politics was brought up, and I explained where I stand. I still do support reparations, even though I feel like it wouldn't go anywhere despite the hearings last year from the ADOS movement, by the way, American Descendants of Slavery, that hashtag ADOS movement. I was a supporter of that, and I don't think, to reiterate, they said it would cost, the estimated cost was around 17 trillion, and then they're already having a hard enough time trying to pass a coronavirus stimulus, and there's a lot of beef in between the Democrats and Republicans. So, good luck with. That's something I would honestly like to see, because I do feel like African Americans, melanated people of color over here, in comparison to the Jewish community, Native Americans, and Japanese Americans with Pearl Harbor, they all receive some type of reparation, some form of it. And I think, as far as what African Americans have faced, this is just my own separate opinion. I'm not trying to preach victimhood or anything of that sort. So please understand where I'm coming from, those out there. But I am explaining why I do swing more to the right than I do the left in terms of my political views. And I'm going over the reasons why. And I have a lot of notes compiled, so when I do a follow-up video and touch on this, you guys will understand my clear message that I'm sending. I will touch on BLM and Antifa. By the way, it's just like when I was kind of touching on a little bit earlier about that arrest, or those arrests that were made in Michigan in regards to that militia group or whatever. I don't have I would have to have a separate amount of notes. But from what I read, there was basically the feds or a few informants had infiltrated, by the way, which appeared to be a setup. And I could see from a particular news broadcast, I had an idea how that came about. There appears to be a form of retaliation. Some said that's a form of a false flag. They provocateured that. They're still members of the deep state, the Stay Behind network. Remember, the left always is going to keep pushing white supremacy, because to control the narrative better, remember the Democratic Party, they have operatives who want to overthrow the government. They have open political anarchists, political Marxists within the Democratic Party who are hardcore, who are not shying away from where they want to defund the police. Now, you do have problems with the police, but overall, you still need your police. The problem I was explaining to a subscriber when I was discussing some of the Breonna Taylor situation, by the way, and I'm going to give some real honest answers, growing up in an African American experience, to some of my Caucasian listeners. If you're not aware, I don't make excuses no more. Um, this is something the left likes to do in terms of victimhood. There's a lot of opportunities for black people to not have to sell drugs, by the way, that can become an entrepreneur, start businesses, because it was stated by a relative of mine many years ago who's very liberal, who's on the left, and I'll use them for example. I just won't describe who they are, but as well as other people that I know, there's foreigners that come over here, they aggregate their wealth, their resources, they pull them together, and they largely, some of them have make up a smaller demographic, less than the African American population. And I mean, they have their problems, they've had their issues, and trust me, they have. I know a historian personally, a guy, he's equivalent of a 5-star historian, and share things privately. I know multiple historians, and they've these other ethnic groups have had their issues, but the way African Americans have dealt with, things have happened and the struggle throughout the years, but there's no excuses for a lot of the violence that takes place in the community. I notice a large demographic of black people, African Americans, uplift this street life, gangster life culture. They think they have a tendency to put on a pedestal. Someone, my mentor, mentioned this to me many years ago. He put it like this: that, and I see this largely within the African American community, not all, but a significant portion, especially those who have the ghetto mentality, who are uncouth, who are like what they call street, or grew up in the hood or very rough area. It doesn't mean that you succumb to the circumstances of that environment or situation. By the way, this is a form of giving up when there's still opportunities to make an honest living, by the way, and not be involved in situations, because if you're involved with the black market, they call the underground economy, which is drug dealing, criminal activities. Understand, at the end of the day, you have to deal with the consequences behind that, and a lot of African Americans don't want to own up to it. You've heard the stories where the guy gets out of jail, he gets celebrated, but the African American guy that gets the college degree, which is rare, doesn't get celebrated by the family. Oftentimes, he might say he's the first one in his family to graduate with the degree. Not in all cases, but there's stories like that. And but you see the Pookie and Ray Ray, these are personality archetypes. So keep in mind, if that is somebody's actual name, please understand I'm just using that as personality archetype to describe the roughneck type archetypes, the thuggos out there. They oftentimes get rewarded. They get placed on a pedestal, and that has to stop. I think in order to see progress for the African American community in terms of the black agenda, you have to stop uplifting the thug and criminal lifestyle culture, the gangster culture. And this is why I do understand there's some people that played a role in corrupting elements of our community by bringing drugs in, the forms of the gangster rap music. However, that does not make an excuse for the race as a whole, as a collective, to continue to uplift these types of things. To you know, how can I put it? You guys know what I mean. Which this leads to a cycle of this toxic culture, leads to a cycle of dysfunction and self-destruction. And notice the left, oftentimes when there's political elections, I've noticed this throughout the years, they align themselves with the hip hop industry. I remember in 2004, they had these T-shirts they were selling called "Vote or Die," and they aligned themselves with top hip hop artists such as Sean Diddy Combs, rapper Nelly, as well as others. This "Vote or Die" campaign, and these things I'm just kind of tying in. If you connect the dots, the pieces together, I see the same pattern where, and the reason I don't go along, I prefer the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. I feel like as a black man, as an African American, there's really no one out there
within the Democratic Party, especially, that is a voice for us. Even though we had a so-called black president and Barack Obama at one time, I'm saying our more recent history. By the way, that's a whole other topic within itself. By the way, if you read between the lines of what I'm saying, I felt like he championed the causes of other people, and even made a public statement that he was the president of everybody, that excused him from having to do anything specifically for the African American community. And I specifically asked the question. I'm not trying to hate on the man or nothing, but I question why a lot of African Americans don't hold him to the pedestal, hold him and Michelle, his wife, who oftentimes has been a political advocate, spokesperson for him. By the way, I heard she spoke on some things more recently, advocating for people to vote for Biden and Kamala, and everybody's welcome to their opinion. But why should people, if you don't share the same opinion, feel like you're shamed, or you're falsely labeled, and called, even as an African American, a white supremacist? By the way, it's such craziness. Not You're not allowed to have your own opinion, by the way. And like I said, this is, if you study history, this goes on in communist countries, by the way. And they get to the point they disappear people. They have camps already. This is a fact. I'm not making this up. You guys can fact check this, investigate this thoroughly. Don't take my word for what I'm saying. But in North Korea, China, there's other places, and even in past history, they've murdered people over their political views. And this is coming from the left. This is not coming from the right, by the way. You guys out there who may not be aware, you need to investigate this, look this up. This is coming mainly from the Democratic Party, which a lot of these tech companies, there appears to be their political beliefs, they're aligned with progressives, by the way, such as Facebook. And I am aware, like I said, I'm not trying to attack Mark Zuckerberg. I understand there's pressure as a CEO that's been put on him, by the way, by some of these lobbyist groups that are very powerful, that are backed by certain individuals. I won't say the names, but you guys can read between the lines. There's a certain individual out there whose name you probably have heard numerous occasions, that funds a lot of these different organizations and lobbyist groups, by the way, which are progressive, democratic leaning, by the way, very liberal groups. So these tech companies, which are tied in with Hollywood, also, by the way, they push these narratives and political agendas, but I think they also are out of touch and out of line with the community, the black community. They don't really go into the African American community, except, notice around when it's election time. And as I was saying earlier, they use even not just actors and people to push these agendas, but they don't really necessarily go and interview people like that live in the actual, like the homes or whatever, like in rough areas. By the way, just to throw out, and that's the people you need to hear from, the actual citizens. By the way, ask them, do they want to defund the police? So these are some of the reasons why I don't, my value system overall, as I've matured throughout the years, does not align with the Democratic Party, because I feel like their value system, from my observation, I'm personally for God, family, and the Constitution. Even though I still don't attend church, I'm humbled. I believe there's a creator, there's a higher power in my faith. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether if you even if you get scientifically, when they've mentioned how they've discovered the God particle within the atom. The atoms contain protons, neutrons, and electrons. So even on the molecular level, there's a force, the centrifugal force of this universe. By the way, there is a higher power. By the way, and I think there's some out there. I'm not trying to get religious, but I can bring it all together from a religious, spiritual, or scientific level. I can see where they all tie in together. By the way, and I think the Democratic Party, they're more negative, and the things that they support, they want to end the family structure. By the way, like they support, of course, obviously know Black Lives Matter. I call BLM. They was interesting with bringing up what happened in Michigan earlier, because I don't have my notes in front of me, guys. So just understand, I'm just freestyling off the top of the head. But I find it interesting, to be fair on both sides of the spectrum. I'm not a registered voter, but from the outside looking in, from my observation, you have where they wanted Trump at the debates to disavow white supremacy, by the way, which he said before he has, and people were bringing up the Proud Boys, which I think is a separate particular group. When his relative sent me this message about what happened in Michigan, I stated to them, in my opinion, the Proud Boys are counter protesters. I haven't heard of the Proud Boys, for example, looting like Antifa, setting fire, attacking innocent people. When I see videos of the Proud Boys, I do see them, when they've got into it with Antifa, but they had one of their members was actually killed by the anti-fascists. In case you're wondering, that's Antifa's organization, and Antifa is worldwide, by the way. It's a worldwide organization. I believe, in my humble opinion, from my observation, they're funded by the same group that BLM is funded by. Many of these groups, by the way, are hardcore, and I'm not saying for the majority of people. I support, Black Lives Matter. I think should matter as a movement, but there's needs to be a distinct difference between the movement and the organization. What I'm explaining, I don't support the ideology of the organization of Black Lives Matter, which the Democratic Party supports, that wants to end the family structure. If, in case you're not aware of this, I was informed recently, and I know many of you already know, they removed from their website their ideological belief system. I guess they had it on there. I actually had already downloaded a video where I saw from the Black Manosphere discussions where people talk about relationships and stuff like that, and they get political, where some people had done videos already exposing this, by the way, because there was already an attack many years ago on the Black family structure. And I feel, in my humble opinion, many years ago, I felt as a Black man, many of our, not all, but a significant portion of Black women and many of our sisters have abandoned us. I know they say the same thing about us. However, when I look at history with the civil rights movement back in the 60s and the late 60s, which was a tumultuous time period when Martin Luther King, Kennedy were assassinated, Malcolm X, who it's a known fact, J. Edgar Hoover was an open racist, did not like them, who was friends with Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, by the way, you can look up what he said. Don't take my word for it, because I did have a subscriber that asked me not too long ago, had texted me about the context of that information. You can fact check it. By the way, I encourage you to look up what he said. Don't take my word. I won't even say the quote. But Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was, you could say, in the closet racist, but he was known, he was friends with J. Edgar Hoover, by the way. So you can read between the lines when you study history. It's not important, even though I wasn't alive yet during that time period. But they also are not putting certain information in documentaries and things anymore, because they're trying to cover up the truth, and they're trying to keep people from waking up. And I see this coming from the Democratic Party. I don't see this coming from the Republican Party. They're censoring people. I heard at Berkeley University they were already burning books. They're removing pages from certain books so that people can't see what actual facts are, because they want to rewrite history to control the narrative to fit their ideology, their agenda. And this is very dangerous, because what I spoke of previously, don't take my word for what I say. Do your research, please. That's why I give a disclaimer to do your homework, do your own research. And remember, everyone's individual circumstance or situation is different, but please do your research, because historically, in communist countries, and even currently today, they kill people, they torture people in North Korea. I even found out they still have camps in China where they disappear people. This goes on. And it's happened historically. And this is being pushed in the form, the Democratic Party is covert with the way that they're pushing this. But these different groups, if you've heard the term, they're selling it. Yes, you do have grievances, by the way, which I was touching on earlier. You do have racist cops out there. Don't get me wrong. By the way, understand, but the majority to label all police or people who work in private security as all white supremacists, or act like they're all out to get you, that is a bold-faced lie. When there's more people that die from medical malpractice, there's more people that get killed from black on black violence. Yeah, I said it, and then I spoke to a leader from the pro-black conscious community. Well, I won't call him a leader, but someone I know personally that's seen the pyramids in Egypt. And they told me personally, they studied history, that's concerning to them. That this little girl that got killed in Atlanta, caught in crossfire, it was at a particular protest, but I heard allegedly there was two gang members that were fighting, and many people shot and killed in Chicago. That's just as important as someone being innocently killed by the police, like what happened with Jonathan Price. That's sad. That's messed up. So that needs to be equally taken into consideration. Not one is more important than the other, and the Democrats don't do that. They're pushing a one-sided agenda where they wanted Trump to disavow white supremacy, but they won't disavow the violence that happened with after the George Floyd murder. By the way, the George Floyd killing, when Derek Chauvin put his neck on George Floyd, which most law enforcement agencies, even our local police chief, James Craig, said was clearly wrong. He was one of the first police chiefs to speak out about it. But why is it all these protests in a coordinated way broke out all over the country? What made all of the rest of these police officers responsible for what Derek Chauvin did in Minnesota? And yes, you do have problems in other places, but what did Black Lives Matter solve out of that? What did Antifa? What's the solution that you all brought? Because when I speak to the women, they say, "Well, what's the solution to all of this?" So I know that we need to discuss solutions, and I don't see that coming from the left. I see more so the conservative party that actually tries to bring solutions together legislatively. Of course, a lot of things have been blocked. They did vote for police reform. By the way, after that incident happened, the Democrats blocked it because they control the House because they felt it wasn't good enough. By the way, but you bet you if the Republicans control the House, that's something that would have been a step in a positive direction. When the black Senator Tim Scott spoke, by the way, he spoke how I was pulled over by the police back in January, even prior to that. Just he explained an experience that he had. By the way, but that doesn't mean just because what's going on that you act disrespectful or not compliant or confrontational. We know those types